Welcome back, everyone. I'm joined by the assistant sports editor from the Telegram and Gazette and Home Team Magazine, Jim Wilson. And Willie, it's here, believe it or not.
Finally.
The regular season's over, and now we're on to
None
the
of it
playoffs.
matters.
Here we go. The second season in Central Mass is upon us. Can you feel it? Can you feel it in your bones?
It's just, the tension is great. It's been wonderful. People are pumped and jacked. Let's get going. Let's go.
Palpable. We're going to look at Division II, and we'll just go right through the divisions and look at some of the games. Not a huge slate in terms of games where you're saying, okay, this is probably a 3-point game or this is a pick'em game. But Algonquin-Shrewsbury is a game the two teams played the first game of the season. Shrewsbury won that one big. And you and I were talking about this one earlier today. For Algonquin, they've won 4 in a row. They're coming in with a lot of confidence right now. For Shrewsbury, all of a sudden, all those sophomores they've been playing all year now have a year under their belt. So they don't have that inexperience anymore. They're getting healthier, and they now kind of understand John Aloisi's system and know it a lot better than they did game 1.
Right, exactly. This is, like I said, this is two teams that they played first week, and I think both teams are totally different than what that. I don't think how much you can get from that game film, because Algonquin's playing with house money at this point. They're 4 in a row. They're playing. They're the most confident they've been in years, and so before I was there. So they were there. It's been a while, and so I think that they know it's great. They're in the playoffs finally. Justin McKay's, all his speeches and his pregame shenanigans with the videos and all that motivational stuff is finally paying off. They're in a playoff game. They got Shrewsbury, and they know it's 34-0 the first time, but that's not the case next time. I think they're a better team. Hill and those guys are playing really well. I think they're winning these games that normally they don't win, like we talk about every week now. Every week there's a different game. It's like, how did they win that one convincingly? Right. So, in coming into Shrewsbury, they could be a little more confident, but are they skilled? Because I think you said Shrewsbury's getting people back from injury. They're, a whole, 6-7 weeks under John Aloisi's system. The play calls are second nature to them right now. They're going to be more dangerous than they were the first time. And their eyes are going to be focused on Kyle the Thrill Hill for Algonquin and Ryan Berry, the quarterback. You guys weren't confident when you played? Yeah, Frank Cronoff. It's all we needed.
That's great. North Middlesex, Wachusett. Each team has one, hang your hat on win on their ledger right now. North Middlesex opened the season with a victory over Doherty, and for Wachusett, that win over St. John's huge. So, Wachusett's the favorite in this. But it is two teams that have shown they can beat anyone.
John Bootwell and North Middlesex, I think they're just as capable of winning this game than anything. I don't think they look at it and saying we're the underdogs here. I think they've had some impressive games where, like we said about Algonquin, they're just, they're getting better every game. They're playing really well. Bootwell's a 4-year starter at quarterback. He's a guy that Wachusett has to worry about. Wachusett's coming off of bye weeks. They've had 2 weeks, so since that St. John's game, which is a momentum-building game, they'd love to go into playoffs on that, but they had that bye week. So can they maintain that whole thing? Their confidence is really up. They're looking at it saying, you're beating St. John's, one of the best teams in Division II. You should be able to be a threat for Gillette.
John McCarthy, Mitch Driscoll, right, two guys that are key figures for Wachusett in that. Marlboro and Leominster. Marlboro coming off a great game against St. John's. Comes down to a last-second kick. The Panthers lose it on that last-second kick, but I love what Sean Mahoney did. He made every possession count. He limited possessions for St. John's. They took as much time off the play clock in between each snap as they could. They ran the ball. They pounded the ball. It was possession football. It was just wind that clock down, and it started from the very first possession of the game. It wasn't something they started to try to do in the second half or in the third quarter, late in the third quarter. They did it right from the beginning. It was his game plan. Marlboro executed that game plan almost flawlessly. Right. I think they're going to obviously try to do the exact same thing against Leominster. Take the ball, keep the ball away from that Leominster offense, that vaunted Leominster offense. Make Leominster have 2 possessions, 3 at the most per half.
Exactly. You said that's the best way to beat St. John's. Get their weapons off the field. Because remember, they didn't have Davon Jones that game. He's back against Marlboro in the playoffs. But I mean, you look at that game. They didn't have that threat on defense. They always say you can't score if you're not on the field. But they didn't have Davon for a pick-6 threat or anything like that. They had Sam Norton they had to worry about. But so they were able to just keep those drives going. I think that was a huge thing. We talk all the time about how it was, the game. It was one of those games that feels like a win, even though they lost. I think for St. John's, exactly opposite. I think they win that game, but they're worried. They have problems without Davon, and I think they have a lot of stuff to correct in the playoffs, even with him back.
And Marlboro did a great job against Shane Combs and Tim Cassidy. Now they have to do a similar job against Eddie Rivera and Noah Gray. So a very tough test for the Marlboro Panthers, and they're on the road, which is different
problems.
too.
I mean, it's a whole keeping Leominster off the field. I think this offense is similar in terms of how dangerous they are. So I think if Marlboro tries to keep that team on the sideline, I think that's what exactly. I agree. They're going to try to do the same exact thing and try to ball control and keep them from hurting them as long as they can. Because even they know they can keep them off the field for 10 minutes. All you need is 30 seconds. They can get a long break and score.
And it's the difference is too. Now you're playing on turf. Now you're on the road. You're playing at Doyle Field where it's on turf. Leominster's such a fast team. It plays to their strength, to their advantage. Kelleher Field has that huge crown, and at this time of the year, you get that heavy dew on a Friday night. And guys were slipping a lot in that St. John's game. Footing was an issue in that game. If Marlboro's playing this game at home too, that's obviously a huge advantage. It's not. It's on the road, turf, ideal conditions for Dave Palazzi's offense. Fitchburg and St. John's, you kind of touched on St. John's. Davon Jones is back. That's huge on both sides of the ball. I mean, obviously, his bread and butter is defense, and what they can do with him defensively as a safety. You can put another guy in the box because Jones can cover for 2 guys, even 3 guys on defense. So now you can do different things defensively. You can send guys. You can send Jones. You can send him, cover him man. But even offensively, I think he's underrated a little bit in the fact that he's 18 yards per catch.
Right.
So now you split Davon Jones out. Now the defense has to shift a little bit. Now a safety has to move out, or an outside linebacker has to move out to give help to that cornerback. When you do that, Shane Combs can gut you up the middle, or Tim Cassidy can gut you up the middle, or one of the things that I think was a silver lining for the St. John's team is they found another go-to receiver in Bobby Spillane.
Yeah.
The last 2 games, he's got 19 catches right now. Spillane for 261 yards. The last 2 games, he's been the number 1 target for Tim Cassidy. He's running great routes, and there's no way you can simulate a game situation. When you run in practice and you're going over the middle, you're not going to get lit up. It's easier to catch the football. When you're going in a game situation, things are moving 100 miles an hour. You're hearing footsteps. You're hearing people, screaming and yelling. That's different. That game experience is invaluable. Spillane came up big the last 2 weeks.
And they needed to, because I think you alluded to it sort of, because without Davon on offense, you can key on Combs for the most part and know that's what the offense is going to try to run through. It's not like they had, Danny Light or Smiley, or those guys they had in the years before. They can, capable of. Cassie's not going to bootleg it out for a big gain every other play, like Light and Smiley were. Right. With Combs, you sort of focus on him a little bit more and make the other kids beat you. That's what happened with Spillane. Spillane came up big. They needed somebody else, because even Calvano and those guys, they were getting double coverage sometimes. They knew if Combs was covered, they could probably go to this B option. Spillane's really stepped up. That's what they need, because now they have Jones back, and they have not only have Jones back on offense, but Spillane's established himself as a threat. Calvano's established himself as a threat. So, and then you have Combs. That's pretty dangerous for St. John's. That's what they want to have going into the playoffs. So maybe this is a blessing for them.
It could be, and then obviously that's the way as a coach you want to turn things into a positive. Division 4, Holy Name Doherty. It's a rematch. Doherty won that first game 27-20. They were up big at the half. Holy Name with a great charge at the end, 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns. Jakari Carpenter for Doherty has just been absolutely immense. Holy Name, of course, has that big win over Auburn that they'll hang their hat on. Obviously, it's going to be a real physical game. It's 2 teams. Doherty can throw the football, but their bread and butter is to pound it, and it's like a pitcher in his fastball. Their establisher, their foundation is running the ball with Jakari Carpenter, and then everything kind of blossoms off of that.
Right, and then Holy Name is coming. Like you said, the first, a lot of times in the playoff rematches, you've pretty much shown a lot of your cards that first game to get there. You don't want to really leave too much under your hat. So I think Holy Name's confident going to this game. Talking to their coaching staff, they have no problem fixing Doherty again. They want that rematch. I don't know if they saw something they can sort of exploit or something that didn't really work the first one they can fix and go into the second game. But I think they're worried. If they know look what St. Peter Marion did last week against Doherty. They really, I don't want to say they shut them down, but they were able to contain Carpenter. We talk about it all the time. Don't let anybody hurt. Don't let the Mark Wrights, the Carpenters hurt you. They're going to get their yardage. But I don't think
put an umbrella on
exactly.
it. You just don't want to give up that huge play. If you can keep them to 8 yards, 9 yards, then stop them every once in a while, but you just don't want to give up that 60-yard touchdown run that's demoralizing to you. And Doherty's going to be angry because they're coming off of that St. Peter Marion loss, so they're going to be a team that's out looking to take out their frustration.
Doherty knows they lost the game they probably shouldn't have, and I think that's going to irritate them all week, and Holy Name might be the recipients of their wrath.
North and St. Peter Marion. This is a good game. You and I were talking about this morning. Great game. St. Peter's obviously coming in with a lot of confidence after beating Doherty, but North is 4-3. They easily could be 6-1.
Right.
Very easily could be 6-1. Coming off a tough loss at Algonquin in a game that they could have won in that game. Love what North has done all season long. They're a very tough team to stop. They're a very physical team. They have a big line. St. Peter's has a big line. North has a big line. St. Peter's more of a running team now. North is a running team. They can throw just like St. Peter's can throw. So I love this matchup.
Keep your lunch pails ready. Is going to work in the trenches. This is a line game. I love it. They'll be opening holes. I think St. Peter Mary's coming in really. See, look, they don't really have that blowout loss. That they're going to say a lot of fixing stuff after the game. Even the Shepherd Hill game, they were still in it. They only lost by a touchdown.
Right.
I think they look at that and say, that's one of the best teams in the state. We hung with them. Can't wait for the rematch, because they think things will be different. I think they're coming to this game with a win over Doherty, where they're able, especially remember they were missing half their skilled players for the first half of that game. So I think losing those guys and able to keep Doherty contained. I thought, to be honest with you, when I heard that was happening, I kind of figured Doherty would sort of get out early and they'd be chasing points for the rest of the game. That never happened. A couple key field goals. St. Peter Mary was either out in front or in the game that first half. They got the cavalry came after halftime. The kids are back in. They were able to maintain that lead, get a big run, and sort of pull away. That was the game they wanted to have.
And they got it, and they got it going into the playoffs, which is going to give them some confidence. Auburn-Bartlett, this is a great game, a rematch game of last year. Bartlett knocked out Auburn out of the playoffs last year. That's going to be talked about. But more than anything, this to me is a great spotlight game for two of the best runners in Central Mass. Mark Wright is going to be a 2,000-yard runner before the season's out. Darius Givens is a great runner for Bartlett, hasn't played every game, but now you're looking at, to me, it's like a Tony Dorsett versus Walter Payton matchup in the old NFL days.
Again, another old reference from us.
Who's going to win
kids
that?
love us.
Who's going to win that battle? Neil Flanagan, I think, has to be huge for Bartlett defensively.
Needs to be big.
Trying to track down Mark Wright, and then that Auburn's going to scheme to try to stop Givens.
I feel like Flanagan has a picture of Mark Wright over his bed this week, just to know he's going to be his best friend on Friday night because he's going to be in his face mask all game. That's the way that Bartlett has to do to win this game. They have to sort of, we talked earlier about Carpenter. Just keep an umbrella on Wright, not let him get out of the way. You saw last week what Bartlett was able to do with Givens back, in playing the whole game. He was able to run wild over Uxbridge, hand them their first loss. He's going to be tough. Auburn, on the other hand, they've had a week off, and Auburn has about 55 assistant coaches on the sideline. One of them probably can do math. I'm sure one of them realized we got 2 weeks to prepare for Bartlett. They probably did the math. They probably realized Bartlett was on the horizon for them. So I think they probably knew, with 2 weeks to prepare for Bartlett and what they can do to sort of get this back. You mentioned earlier last year's team. I talked to them preseason. That was still irritating. They had heard all off season long about how Bartlett handed done it. They embarrassed them last playoffs. Right. So and Auburn hasn't had that happen to them in a while. They can't wait for a second chance at this team, and they would love nothing better than to reverse the tables from last year and upset Bartlett in this year's playoffs.
Revenge, and maybe some history made. We're out of time, but maybe some history made in Northbridge this week too.
Kenny.
Northbridge Clinton. If Northbridge wins, Ken LaChapelle owns the state record for career coaching victories, and obviously they're going to be the favorite going in.
Right, I think they
He's
two of the classiest coaches in Constantino and LaChapelle on the sidelines. I can't, LaChapelle is a great milestone for him.
Yeah, and you can't simulate Kobe Schofer in practice. He's just too good. All right, we're out of time. For Jim Wilson, I'm Kevin Shea. We'll take a short break and be back with more of the Frenzy Extra right after this.